everybody to our Lunch and Learn today, presented by the Women in Industrial Science, Design, Engineering and Manufacturing group at Alma's Community College. Today, I am joined by Heather Dawe-Rose. Heather is a senior client success engineer with TriMech, and she went to Penn State for nuclear engineering. That's something completely out of the road of what we usually see. And she was also very active in her school's NASA team. I think that's super exciting, and I hope you're going to share a little more about that. But now she really is an expert with SOLIDWORKS and an advocate for STEM for young women and girls. So I'm super excited to have Heather with us today. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, we are very excited to hear from you, Heather.
All right, thank you for having me. Yeah, like she said, I am Heather. I have really been involved in science stuff and science outreach for a really long time. In high school, I'm sure a lot of people who are involved in science did their school's robotics team and stuff like that. And I was involved with that in my high school and did, as part of the outreach for that, mentored the elementary school's little Lego League team. So I've always liked being involved in science outreach and STEM, just education in general. I went to school at Penn State for nuclear engineering and participated as the president and outreach coordinator of our student launch team. And what that is, it's a NASA competition. So every year we build a rocket. We actually build 2 rockets from start to finish. It's a high-powered rocket. They go about a mile up in the air. We do everything except for build the fuel. We do purchase the fuel, but we build the entire thing, and normally there's some sort of scientific mission that we have to accomplish. So some sort of scientific experiment, whether it be getting information about the atmosphere as it's going up, or landing a rover and having it move to a certain spot, having it try and land in a specific spot, things like that. So that was what I was involved with and what I did a lot during college. I was also involved as part of that, as part of our outreach with Penn State's science outreach program. They have these awesome like STEM summer camps every summer for all the elementary age kids throughout just the whole area in Center, Pennsylvania. And so I was involved with that as a mentor in college. And then once I graduated and once I went into industry, I actually got to make my own camp. So I'm a volunteer instructor. We do a computer-aided design and 3D printing camp where they print off little go-kart robot cars, and they push them through, and they learn stuff like electrical, they learn how CAD works, how 3D printing works, and it's a really cool experience for them. Right now, my job is I'm a client success engineer with TriMech. So after college, I really found that when I was in college, I loved computer-aided design. I think I took every class that Penn State offered in terms of computer design, and I especially like SolidWorks. So once I graduated college, I went and worked for a VAR, which is a reseller for SolidWorks. So we're the ones who implement other companies' SolidWorks applications or their data management applications, and we help them with any issues that they might have, and we act as consultants for if they have a problem that they need someone to solve, or they just need some advice on how to get something done. That's what we do as a reseller. And so I've worked in that industry for about 5 years. I started as an application engineer, moved up to advisory, and now senior client success engineer. I work primarily in the tech support department. I also do some teaching. So we teach classes on like, how do you use SolidWorks simulation? How do you use different aspects of SolidWorks? And so I really enjoy doing that as well.
That's awesome. Where are you guys located?
So my company's located in Richmond. We have offices all over basically the eastern coast going up to about Pennsylvania and down, and then a little bit west, going over right before Texas, I believe.
That's awesome. And for our students that would be interested in a career in CAD, do you work remotely or do you actually have to report to an office?
I work remotely. I have worked at a few different resellers. Some of them I worked remotely, some of I worked in person. But the general feeling I feel like on most of the industry is if you live near an office, come into the office. But since I'm in the DC metro area and my company's in Richmond, I only go in once a month, not recently during COVID, but about once a month normally.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So you already talked a little bit about getting started at Penn State and being part of this amazing NASA club. That's super exciting. But what really, can you tell us what sparked your interest in STEM and going into this field? Did that happen before college? So is there a certain time, I don't know, maybe a summer camp, or maybe you were inspired by somebody else? Can you tell us a little more about that?
I think I watched Apollo 13 when it came out when I was a kid, and I think it just kind of snowballed from there. So to go along with like the student launch competition, I'd always had an interest in space and everything. If you were to like look on my bookshelf here, I have a lot of like all the books on like all the different astronauts, like the Mercury astronauts, the Apollo astronauts. There's also a astronaut Beanie Baby that I've had forever that seems to go with the theme, but I've just always been interested in that. And so I remember when I was in elementary school, we had to pick like these independent presentations that we would do as part of a program that I was in elementary school. And I think one year I picked like all the Apollo astronauts. One year I picked like on the International Space Station. So I've always loved doing that, and I've always been interested in it. And then like once I got in high school, I joined like the robotics team as soon as I could and everything like that. But I've always been interested in that. I've always had like books and stuff like that on space or different things like that. Just, it's always been kind of a passion.
That's awesome. I like that. Do you think there are any misconceptions about women working in your industry?
So I think recently I've definitely, so for instance, a lot of people do think every industry is all men and you're going to be the only woman. Something actually really cool about my job, every data management team I've worked on as part of a reseller has been 2/3 women and 1/3 men, actually. Wow. It's just kind of interesting. But definitely like going into college and things like that, there were 8 girls in my 40-person nuclear engineering class. I think it was like
not too bad.
8 people. Yeah, something like that. So in my graduating class, there was definitely a small amount of women there. On the robotics team, there was obviously more guys than girls involved in that. But so it's always something like that. So it's always kind of unexpected when you see a woman in engineering, STEM, anything like that. But I think that's actually really changing just by note of like my industry, how I see things happening. But like back to when I was like watching Apollo 13, there were no women engineers in that movie. So it's really cool to see that kind of evolve and see it change as it's going through.
Do you think there are any barriers to female leadership in your industry?
I think in my specific industry, I think it's much more of a newer industry in terms of being consulting, and consulting in general is just kind of newer. So I think in my specific industry, I haven't faced that as much, but I do know that I talk to customers because we're very involved with customers. And there are some industries that are more like factory work or that are more really industrial. And I think that's where you run into engineers who've been doing this since the 60s or whatever. And it wasn't normal for a woman to get promoted up into higher management going through there. So there's definitely still that barrier overcoming kind of that old train of thought and showing everybody that, yeah, we can do whatever we want basically going through here. I think I have a great privilege in that my industry is a newer industry, so we're not facing that as much. A lot of the people in my industry are even younger, just based off of it being consulting and it being teaching and tech support, and it being like constantly having to keep up on the newest thing in SolidWorks going through. So you can't just kind of sit back on what you learned 30 years ago and hope that brings you through.
Right. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. We did have networking event for females in manufacturing and the trades yesterday. And we talked a lot about, you know, applying for a promotion, and then the male colleague got the promotion. And then our students, here comes another person, and then not our students, but the females on the call just talking about not, you know, getting like really weird explanations for why they did not get that job. And it's heartbreaking. And a lot of times it was something like, we need you in the position you are in right now. And I understand, but I don't. If this person is ready to move up and has the potential, why not let her move up? And it seems like what we talked about yesterday, it's a lot about the automotive industry. So very, very male dominated. And if you have a young woman come in, she really has to prove herself at least twice, because she's young and she's a woman. Nobody thinks she can do anything. So it's I'm very happy to hear that it's not that bad in your industry, and that you can really have a better standing. So that's great. Can you tell me a little more about the initiatives that you're working at, like the STEM camp?
Yeah, so like I said, I did that. There's a great program for Penn State that does these STEM summer camps every year. So everything from, you know, physics to chemistry. There's one in like the forensic science department where they actually get to go like solve mysteries and stuff. And I'd been involved with those camps, and that was like one of my summer jobs in college, was like mentoring those camps. And it's really fun and it's really cool because little kids think science is awesome and they're not like dreading reading their textbooks. I think it's really cool. So once I got into industry, we had something called volunteer hours, where basically we get 2 extra days of paid time off if we were volunteering. So I went to the director of those camps and said, I would really like to put together a STEM summer camp for computer-aided design. And we coupled it with the physics department. And luckily, one of the professors in the physics department, his son is really into the 3D printers. So he like jumped on. So we have this 3-part camp that it's computer-aided design, it's 3D printing, and then it's physics. And we go through and we have little lessons step by step. So they'll design this go-kart, and I think I have, I can get my mouse back. There we go. I think I have some pictures I can pull up from that.
Oh, absolutely.
How do I share my screen?
So if you go down, you can see a little icon that says share screen.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right, you guys should be able to see this, but this is the car that they built actually. So this is a 3D printed car that they built, and each little part of this they actually designed in CAD, going through and creating that. And then I think there's some
I think
pictures.
it did not work. I'm sorry. I think it didn't work because I can see anything.
Oh, how about now?
Uh-huh.
All right. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see that now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so this is the car that they built, and they go through and they build the different parts of this car in CAD, and then they watch it get 3D printed, and you can see that it's battery powered with a motor. So they did a really cool lesson on gears and how when you have different gear ratios, it will make the car go faster or slower depending on how fast your motor is changing, because the motors they had only went 1 speed. So they were changing their speed based on gear ratios and things like that. And then here's like them 3D printing just like a little design that they had going through here, which was a ton of fun. And then this is me teaching them how we wanted to talk about how when the air goes over the roof of your car, you want a really good smooth car. You don't want something with flat edges. So we had them envision, like, when I throw a football, why does that work better than me throwing a piece of paper and stuff like that? So we really got to cover a lot of that information. And then they made their own hoods, and I put them into SolidWorks, and I gave them a flow analysis, and they said, oh, this hood's good, this hood's bad, I'm going to use this one for my car because that's going to make it go faster, and things like that. So that was a lot of fun going through and teaching them all about physics and integrating it with CAD and 3D printing and everything like that.
Awesome. And that was a 6-week program. I saw week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So.
Oh, so in the live summer camp, it is a 1-week program. We now have, for COVID, we had a 6-week, but like 1 daily lesson so that they could do it like at home and then come back and then
That's
do that.
awesome.
That way they could do it on their own time. They had a little bit more freedom to do it. We also had them design all of these different things because with COVID, we got a little bit more freedom to have them not integrated as much and have it be 3 separate modules. So we actually did something kind of cool. These were their final projects. They actually all just designed like their favorite rocket from wherever. So these are all student designed things. I don't even know that I could design that Millennium Falcon, but it was really cool going through and seeing like what they could think of.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Did you have any girls in these camps too?
It's about 50-50.
Really? Wow.
They're 4th and 5th graders. At that point, I think it's just whoever wants to do the camp is signing up. It's
right.
We might have actually had more girls this year than guys, and I think it's because 4th grade girls are more likely to be able to sit in front of a computer for an hour than 4th grade guys. But yeah, no, it was really fun.
That's awesome. I guess we're just not doing a good job nurturing that interest in girls, and they just do it at some point and they feel like STEM is not the place to be for them. They would rather be a nurse or a doctor or something like that, something more female. So I love that. I love that you have so many girls interested in that. That's really awesome. So if you have any girls or young women asking you about what they need to learn or the classes they have to take to be like you in a couple of years, like, are there any specific skills they need to attain? Is there anything that you can tell them?
So I know I took physics going all the way through. I made sure to take all my science classes. They offered CAD when I was in high school, so I took that in high school already. And then when I got into college, I kind of had a leg up going there. But I know a lot of high schools offer like computer programming or things like that. Just anything that you can get, like if it would be similar, if it would give you a little bit of a leg up going in, if you're planning on entering a STEM major, then I would definitely take it. Even if you're taking calculus and you don't get the 5 on the AP to get your college credit, you are still going to be ahead when you get into college, and you've already seen calculus before and some people haven't. So even if, oh, this class is hard and I know I'm not going to pass the AP test, so why would I even take that? Just go ahead and take it and learn it and give yourself a good base so that you can really spring off of that.
Right. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about any specific skills? So do you think, of course, math and physics, that's important, I understand, but is there anything else? Like, would you advise them to do something with their hands? I don't know, start working on the car at home. Is that important, do you think?
So I personally could not build a car if you asked me to. But just there's so many different ways that you can get into different STEM careers. And I did build little model rockets and stuff like that, but find something that you're interested in and do that. And if it's applicable to your career, that's just makes your career more fun going through. So I'm not necessarily saying like you have to build a car to figure this out, but I built little model rockets, or I know people who had microscopes and like studied things. Just whatever you want to get into, find something that kind of makes that fun, and then see how you can turn that into a career going through.
That's great advice. Are there any women or men that inspire you, or did you have a mentor along the way?
I definitely have had mentors going through. There's a woman who I worked with who was a few positions ahead of me, like several tiers up the ladder. And she was a very like strong woman. She knew what she was doing. She was one of the best consultants in our field. And so it was great to look up to her and talk to her and be able to ask her advice on things. In my high school, the physics teacher was actually a electrical engineer before she went on to be a physics teacher. So she was a really great resource to have. And I remember like I would take my off period and she'd let me like do my studies like in her room rather than going into like the locker room or the library to study. So that was a really great mentor to have going through. And then even like people I don't know, I know we talked a little bit earlier, I went into nuclear engineering. Marie Curie has always been like one of my idols in terms of women in science, and just her entire family still holds the record for having the most Nobel Prizes. Like within her family, there are 4 Nobel laureates in there. She not only won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, but also raised like a Nobel Prize, like her daughter won a Nobel Prize in chemistry. Like,
Didn't know that. That's awesome.
So definitely all of that. And that was a long time ago, before there were a lot of women in STEM. And I've read biographies about her, and she just didn't care and just went through and did whatever she wanted to do, and kind of ignored the fact that she was a woman in STEM, and did amazing things going through.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think she's an awesome role model. I didn't know her daughter actually received a Nobel Prize too. That's awesome.
Yeah. All of her kids going through, like, I think there's still like I think it's like a great granddaughter who is in a nuclear department at a college over in Europe. I forget which college, but like just still going through. It's really interesting.
Wow. Yeah. What a family.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on finding a mentor? You said you had this amazing woman as a mentor. How did you find her?
Just find people that you look up to and talk to them, and ask them questions and get information from them, and get the things that you need in order to grow as a person, and ask them questions and go through it. That being said, if you are working in a STEM field and you notice, maybe you're a college student and you notice that there's a high schooler who keeps emailing you and asking questions, ask if they'd like to have a mentor. So the thing goes both ways, but really find people who you admire something about and put yourself around them. You don't want to be if you're the smartest person in the room, you should probably find a different room. You want to be around people who are better than you so that you can grow to be better.
That's awesome. I like that. I've never heard that before, but that's absolutely true. Yesterday we had a speaker at our keynote session, and she said sometimes she meets people that she's completely intimidated by because they're so successful and powerful. And what she does is she invites them to a podcast to talk to them, because she's like, I want to find out what it is that scares me about this person.
Yeah, exactly.
That is awesome. I really do admire that. That is really awesome. All right, I'm opening the floor for questions. Do we have any other questions?
I guess I'll ask one, Bettina. This is Sally.
Hey, Sally, go for it.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Since I work in continuing education, which I love, I believe continuing education, how can this program maybe be a foundation for potential students to go into curriculum? So what would be some of the classes we could offer to attract these young people, or anyone really?
That's a good question. So I work with computer-aided design, and almost any engineering, industrial, anything uses some sort of CAD platform to design their products. Very rarely are you seeing people anymore like picking up a pen and paper and like sketching out their engineering design ideas. It's all done on the computer and done through that. And that stuff changes just year by year. It's really good. So I have people who said, oh, I took CAD in 2000 and I took that class, so I should be good. I'm like, maybe we could use a refresher course. So even just going through and having those CAD courses that update every year, so you know what's the newest in that, and you really give yourself a leg up on something that's really, really important in almost every industrial engineering, manufacturing industry to know how to do.
Okay, that's good. I do have one AutoCAD, and I actually do have a Zoom meeting with the instructors today, so I will definitely check with him to see if he is continue to use updated software. Would that be correct? As he
Make sure he's changing up his curriculum for the updates that come in, and maybe even add in other, there's so many different CAD programs. I think the three biggest though would be SOLIDWORKS, AutoCAD, maybe CATIA. Just having all of those options is also great. Like I said, I took every CAD class available to me in college and just found the one that I liked the best.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you. That's good information for me. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Just adding to that, how do we spark interest in young people? Because a lot of times we have students come to us, they have no idea what manufacturing is, what designing is. They have kind of an idea about engineering, but they have probably never heard of CAD. So how can we spark that interest?
So I know I had to take CAD as part of my engineering curriculum and just knew that I liked it. But one great thing I think my college did is there are a ridiculous amount of clubs and activities concerned with, with the SAE club, like the building of the cars, the student launch. There was another NASA student project with a completely different club. There's every society of mechanical, electrical, whatever engineers, there's Society of Women Engineers. They just had all of these clubs and activities that rather than having you sit in the class and look at a textbook doing it, you're doing this in real life. You're building a rocket from start to finish. You're building a car from start to finish. You're building a solar powered house from start to finish, or like a mini house, but anything like that. You're building any number of type of different design projects. And I think that really gets people interested in it, because you're not waiting until you graduate or waiting until you get a job to really find out what you're going to do. You're doing it right now and finding out if you like it, or finding out if, oh, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I want to do another thing. So just having those things available to them to be able to do that, I think is really important to foster interest, because it can be the most interesting information in the world, but you try to read a 500-page textbook on it and it's not going to be as fun as doing it in real life.
Right. So it's really about exposure and career awareness, isn't it? Just sparking that interest. Yep. I totally see that. So if you had a chance to meet the 10 years younger Heather, what would you tell her? What advice would you give her?
So I think 10 years younger Heather would be a freshman in college. So I'd tell her to keep pushing through it. There's always a big jump going from high school to college, and sometimes things get difficult, but even if it's hard, like I have a career that I really love and I like what I do. And so even if it's hard, like don't get discouraged on that, and keep doing what you're doing and keep being involved in these things, because that's what's actually going to teach you the skills and things you need to learn to participate in your career when you grow up.
That's awesome. Sally, do you have another question for Heather? If not, that's totally fine.
Bettina, no, I don't at this time, but thank you.
Of course, anytime. All right, so Heather, I have a fun question for you at the end. This is, where do we find you on a Saturday morning?
So every Saturday morning, I go to a spin class, and then I come home and I watch college football. That's generally my schedule going through. College football is about to be over, and I went to Penn State, and I'm perfectly happy with it being about to be over because we've won one game this year. But yeah, I go to a spin class, I rock out to some cool music there, and then I come home and I watch college football and hopefully enjoy that game. And that's really some of my favorite things to do on a Saturday.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. Well, thanks for your time today, Heather. It was very inspiring. Thank you for sharing all that information about how you got to where you are right now. I'm going to give you a little more time of your lunch break today. So
Oh,
thank you so much. I'm wishing you all the best for your future and hope we can stay in contact and just follow our WiSDEM group. We'll be happy to have you speak again one day. Thank you so much.
definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day and Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.